won't believe what I discovered when I started looking into organic food. An incredible disparity in retailers' strategies and correlations, sometimes very strong, sometimes non-existent, between the factors driving the offer and market share. And some fairly simple ways to grow organic sales volumes on the one hand, and the total margin for retailers on the other. So my research on organics focuses on fruit compotes. And we're going to analyze, the drill, the retailer's support in developing this category with a focus today on the subject of price. And that is a bit of a bombshell. So I'm focusing on organic fruit compotes for the following reason. First, conventional fruit compotes, well, they're not always so great for consumers' health. Let me give you a few figures. In France, more than half of the fruits and vegetables from intensive farming are contaminated with pesticides suspected of being carcinogenic, toxic to reproduction, or endocrine disruptors. For apples, it's 80%. This is simply explained by the fact that non-organic apples receive, on average, more than 35 treatments per year, 22 fungicides, 9 insecticides, 2 herbicides, and 2 growth regulators. This study from UFC Que Choisir shows that the main organic fruits used in compotes are 5 to 8 times less contaminated than their counterparts from intensive farming due to the ban on synthetic pesticides. And on this topic, our American friends conducted a rather interesting study, although on a sample size that's a bit small for my taste. And in fact, as you can see on the screen, in just 1 week, households that switched to an organic diet saw the chemicals detected in their bodies drop by an average of 60%. It's quite staggering. So the second reason I'm interested in organic fruit compotes, beyond being much better for people's health, organic farming, and this is also true for regenerative agriculture, is much better for nature, for soil fertility, and for the quality of all terrestrial and marine ecosystems, because these production methods require fewer inputs and fewer chemicals. And third, and more broadly, organic fruit compotes provide a very good illustration of what has happened in recent years in the organic products market, and therefore of the support from retailers for the development of this sustainable offering. But according to Circana, well, the volume market share for organic compotes is falling. That's what you see on the screen, where the volume market share has dropped from 11 to 9% in 5 years, after hitting a high of 12% in 2021. You should know that to construct our research, we analyzed what happened in the shelf-stable market. That is to say, we didn't consider products sold in the refrigerated section, nor what was happening in the baby food aisle. So when we say a 9% market share, that's an average since one retailer exceeds 20%, while another lags behind at 6%. So there's a very wide dispersion. And if I remove retailer G, the ratio between the extremes is still greater than 2, which is a lot. So we're going to try to understand this disparity between retailers by analyzing their pricing strategy. And to conduct this research, we analyzed with Circana the evolution of the ratio between the average price of organic compotes and the average price of non-organic compotes. This ratio serves as a kind of relative price competitiveness index for organic versus conventional products. Well, over 5 years, as you can see on the screen, this ratio has evolved slightly and favorably since it went from 1.68 to 1.58. Here too, there are very large disparities between distributors because retailer D, for example, had a ratio greater than 1.8 in 2020, while the top performer today, they'll know who they are, is retailer C with a ratio well below 1.4. Now be careful, these are average prices. And the manufacturer's price, as well as the choice to remove the highest priced decile of products from the shelves, can also be explanatory factors for the improvement of this ratio beyond the retailer's margin strategies and their purchasing conditions. Okay, so I then went to see if there was a correlation between this relative price ratio and the market share of our organic compotes. These are the two graphs you see on the screen, with my price competitiveness index on the x-axis and the market shares on the y-axis. On the left, 2024, on the right, 2025. And we can see that the correlation coefficient ranges between 0.15 and 0.22. So it's not really an effort on price, whether relative or absolute. That seems to be what will make these products take off. Now, this is quite puzzling because it contradicts what we've been hearing since 2023, where we were told that organic is too expensive because of large retailers, and that's why it failed. So I tried another approach. I took two endpoints, 2020 and 2025, and I looked at the evolution of this price competitiveness for organic products for each retailer, the evolution of my index, so the speed of price repositioning for organic versus conventional. And that's what you see on the screen for each retailer. You can see that some retailers made no effort. On the contrary, the price competitiveness of organic versus non-organic did not improve. For example, retailers E and G, for which this ratio remained more or less identical between 2020 and 2025. On the other hand, some retailers like F made real efforts and improved the price competitiveness of organic versus conventional by 20%. But what's also puzzling here is that when I compare the 2020 to 2025 evolution of this organic price competitiveness against the evolution of market shares between 2020 and 2025, well, I find no correlation at all. So what retailer F did, which in principle is virtuous, well, it's not reflected in the evolution of the organic market share for them. That's what you see on the screen. On the x-axis, the 2020-2025 evolution of organic price competitiveness, and on the y-axis, the 2025 evolution of market share. R squared, my correlation coefficient, is equal to 0. So, in conclusion, the retailers that improved the price competitiveness of organic compotes over time did not significantly grow the market share for this product family, even if the intention was commendable. All of this, therefore, seems to me to be an opportunity for retailers who are looking to improve their customers' health, preserve nature and ecosystems, and develop their margin mass for the category. They can therefore reasonably review their margin mix on these products. But above all, they should think about improving the share of organic product offerings, as we saw in the previous episode. The power of retailers to create a more sustainable world therefore comes down to the size of the organic offering, less so the relative price versus conventional, even though all efforts on that front are welcome. Indeed, when this organic market becomes larger, it will likely be necessary to play with the category's codes in terms of price. In our next analysis, in a few days, I will talk to you about promotions.